Okay, so we are here still to talk about more video games and to hit this gavel a few more times. What is this? This is best fighting game of 2020 here at Shacknews.
Not a lot of contenders here.
So Kirby Fighters 2?
Absolutely not.
That
That game was not good. I'm sorry.
Would you score it?
5. You get a 5. I gave it the same score I gave One Punch Man.
Oof.
Yikes.
Oh yeah, One Punch Man.
Okay,
Yeah, One
TJ.
Punch Man came out this year. That wasn't good either.
TJ, tell me why Granblue Fantasy Versus is our best fighting game this year. Oh, the cop.
Because it was first off, it was like one of the only like true fighting games this year.
Wait, are you saying that Kirby's Fighters wasn't true?
It's Kirby versus Kirby versus Kirby versus Kirby.
I mean, I would say that they're among Smash Bros. Clones. Even like Slap City was better than Kirby Fighters.
Kirby Fighters is not a Smash clone.
Kirby Fighters was them taking Kirby Star Allies and trying to make it a fighting game, and it didn't work.
That's accurate.
I mean,
Kirby Star Allies barely worked.
if there was any game that could, there are two games that could be argued against Granblue Fantasy Versus. One of them would be Under Night In-Birth did a new game this year, and it's actually pretty good. Like that game it's an anime fighter, but it's like on the level of Guilty Gear and Street Fighter as far as technicality goes. Like you better have an arcade stick if you're going to play that game because it has some very technical inputs.
I've tried playing that game. I've attempted to play that game.
Very, very, very high learning curve.
Yeah, it's outside of my pay rate or something. I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Far more accessible fighting game, but still like it doesn't have the nuance. I would say is Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 4 has a fighting mode, and it's good. It's fun.
It's like a brawler, you know what I mean? Like it's a beat 'em up though. It's not really a fighting game.
No, he's talking about a mode in the game that
a mode in the game. I guess.
Like Streets of Rage 4 has like the characters have very individualized move lists.
Yeah, like combos.
To the point where you could argue that you can call that a fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would say that Streets of Rage 4's like fighting versus mode is better than some of the it's better than arguably like 80-90% of the other so-called fighting games that came out.
Kirby Fighters 2.
You're saying it's better than Granblue Fantasy Versus?
No.
Okay.
That is where I was going to make the argument that this is going to be quick, but like Granblue Fantasy Versus is the perfect centerpiece between accessibility and nuance. It doesn't take a lot of effort to do any character's moves in Granblue Fantasy Versus, and like I think one of the smartest things they did with that game is they basically RPG'd it up a little bit. There's one button in Granblue Fantasy Versus where you hold the button with a directional button, and you can do like any of the moves. Like if you press with the main character, if you press forward in this skill button, he'll do a forward lunge. If you press down in the skill button, then he'll do like a projectile attack.
So it's like a Smash Brothers type of thing.
Mm-hmm. But like the cost versus benefit of it is that the moves go on cooldown when you use them. And if you use the skill button to do the moves as opposed to putting in a directional input, then they go on a longer cooldown. So Granblue Fantasy Versus is really cool as far as like they put things in there to like really cater to people that don't have the proficiency to put in like very complicated button inputs. And I really appreciate that. I hope it's something that like Arc System Works not only continues to do with some games, but I hope that other people look at that and be like, hey, there's ways to like streamline and invite players without a high skill cap to play our game and do it well.
I have a question. Is there a Kirby with a Link hat in that game?
Kirby Fighters 2.
And a sword?
There is a tiny little princess girl with a giant crown who is almost as good.
Kirby Fighters
The Granblue Fantasy Versus universe. The Granblue Fantasy universe is weird. It is weeb. It is weeb-tastic.
It is
in
very
every way, shape, or
a
form.
lot of waifus in that universe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's a gotcha game.
I mean, it's an Ars Technica game. They tend to do that with a lot
Ars
of their
Technica?
Or
Ars
not,
Technica
Ar-
makes
Arc
games now?
Systems. I'm sorry, Arc Systems Works. No, I said Ars Technica.
Arc Systems Works just made the fighting element to it. The group that made that game is actually Psy Games, and it's like a gotcha RPG.
That's right, Psy Games.
And there's the benefit of that is that they have a huge well of characters to go to, and they'll probably keep doing DLC for that game for a pretty long time.
So here's a question, and this probably just throws a wrench into this, but for no good reason. Does Bleeding Edge count?
Bleeding Edge.
I'd call that
An arena shooter.
I know it's not a shooter, but I'd call it more of an arena shooter.
It's
is
an
a
arena
shooter.
brawler.
Let's be real. It's a shooter.
There's no guns.
Yeah. What there are
It has
guns.
more in common with Overwatch than it does with
Okay.
the fighting game.
That's just I couldn't really, this is kind of a light year for fighting games.
Yeah, I feel like Granblue Fantasy is the only new fighting game I played outside of like One Punch Man, which
Was janky.
it was. I mean, I like what they were trying
I
to
like
do
the
with
concept of
but-
it. If it wasn't a bug-filled mess, I would have championed it a little more. But it's janky as all hell. The performance is shit. I hated it by the end.
I mean, it's really easy to figure out the formula too. Like once you played like a round or two, like it's very straightforward. I didn't feel like there was a lot of like depth to it. Granblue Fantasy, like I'm not good at it, but I like the variety of the characters and how they play. Like I felt like like everybody had their own unique style when it came to like combat and stuff like that. So like yeah, I'll give it to that.
That's worth pointing out. That despite the fact that it's so accessible and the moves are all easy to do, there's still combos in Granblue Fantasy Versus, like devastating combos that if somebody like say me knows what they're doing, I can take 60% of your life bar in just one go. And that's kind of like what I like about it, is that it's a good middle ground between giving people a chance, giving people like with just good fundamentals a way to get into this game without having to do massive combos, and people like me who spend like hours labbing in practice mode and learn this game inside and out. I really like the approach that they took to this game, and I hope that it continues next year with Guilty Gear Strive, because there's a very good chance if they do, that might be my argument for Game of the Year in 2021.
Okay, we're putting this to a vote. So this is the best fighting game that was released in 2020. So sorry, Krabs, Duck Game is not eligible for this.
I didn't nominate Duck Game for this.
I know. I'm just letting you know.
Sorry.
Just letting you know. But because Duck Game is a good fighting game. In case you were confused.
It's all about Slap City this year.
Slap City?
That's what I'm voting for.
Slap City is good. Like it's a good Smash clone.
It has Ultra Fish Bungeon 3000, dude.
It does have Ultra Fish Bungeon 3000. But
he's so much cooler than Kirby.
It's Kirby versus Kirby versus Kirby versus Kirby.
That's fair.
Also
Kirby's not cool.
It also has Business Casual Man, who's just a thumb in pants.
Okay. Well,
if we're voting, I'm ready. I'm ready to put this to a vote.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's put this to a vote. Ozzy, what's your vote?
It's Granblue.
Granblue. David?
I was talking with TJ about this category earlier. I'm gonna have to go with Granblue. What he said sounds really appealing. I'm kind of getting back into fighting games.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I really want to play.
After your performance at the Shacknews Stimulus Games recently, with your Street Fighter display.
Ah, play.
Oh man, dude.
You need a rematch.
Oh man, You know, once we got the lobbies working in that was fun.
Yeah.
I had a good time with that.
Street Fighter's always fun, especially hyper fighting.
Yeah.
Greg.
Don't really have like I mean you said this year, and I think it's a shame because I think fighting games evolve. It's like Smash and.
If only we had like 40 other categories you can nominate games for.
Oh no, I know. I don't have like a vote though. Like I've never.
All right.
Granblue.
Okay, Greg's voting for Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
Greg admits he's unwilling to listen to arguments from his fellow editors. He doesn't respect them.
Yeah, seriously.
I've been looking at the gameplay and stuff for the ones you've been mentioning, and they just don't look. I mean,
You're telling me Kirby Fighters doesn't appeal to you?
no.
TJ's opinion on fighting games is worth crap to you.
But like also like TJ likes very convoluted, complex, overly complex fighting games that take a really long time to adjust to.
This doesn't.
I just made an entire argument.
He just made the argument that it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't even listen to him. On top of not respecting him.
I'm trying to like research the games as you
Listening
guys are
comprehension fail. Listening comprehension fail.
And this is actually a good. This is actually a good anime fighter.
I have penciled you in for Bernie Sanders, Greg.
Unlike what Bandai Namco.
Okay, Steve.
I'm going with Granblue.
Granblue. Uh-oh. We might have a runaway here.
Won't feel blue about that.
Granblue. I got a spammer calling me from Massachusetts. Blake.
Oh man, I can't give it to Tekken 7, so I'm gonna give it to Granblue.
Granblue. Sam.
Yeah, go Granblue.
Chris. Slap City.
Granblue.
Granblue.
Thanks, Chris.
It almost feels like
EJ. Granblue.
Yes.
TJ knows what he's talking about.
Donovan.
I was going to vote Slap City in solidarity with Chris, but I'll go Granblue. Why not?
I appreciate that. I'll use your friendship later.
Chris, don't count on it. Just don't count on it.
I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. Okay, Phil.
No guarantee.
I'm not a big fighting game guy, and I missed the entire discussion, so I can either go Bernie Sanders or I can just toe the line with the trust of everyone going Granblue.
Okay, Josh.
I hate fighting games. We've had this conversation many times. I don't really care for them. Granblue sounds like the better game, but I got to give it to my boy Kirby. So
yeah.
Whoa.
Kirby Fighters 2 gets a vote. That's what I'm talking about. I'm also voting for Kirby Fighters 2. So Bernie Sanders got 1 vote. Kirby Fighters 2 got 2 votes. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The most decisive win of this Shacknews Awards goes to Granblue. What was it? Fantasy Versus? Is that what it's called?
Granblue Fantasy Versus.
Granblue Fantasy Versus.
Granblue Fantasy Versus is your Shacknews fighting game of 2020.